So what are the 8 limbs? It sounds like a very esoteric thing, the 8 limbs of yoga, and I think the limbs themselves, especially when you hear them in Sanskrit, can sound kind of mysterious, and how do they all work together? So here's my best shot at trying to explain it succinctly, okay? It begins with the Yamas and the Niyamas, which are restraints and observances. So think about it this way, the 8 limbs are like a ladder or a pathway that lead you from the external world that we experience in physical reality to your innermost world inside yourself, okay? So the first 2 limbs begin with dealing with all of this out here, our interactions with other people and with society. And the yamas are about what not to do, and the niyamas are about what to do. So the first yama is ahimsa, which is nonviolence, right? And this journey inward is a journey of stilling and calming the mind for meditation. So if you want to still and calm the mind for meditation and you're being violent to yourself or others, that's not going to help you, right? So the first step is to try to practice non-harming. Don't harm yourself, don't harm other people, create peace in your environment, and then that sets the stage for successful meditation, okay? There are 9 other yamas and the niyamas: non-stealing, non-lying, non-grasping, purity, contentment. So these are all concepts, and each one of them is a lifetime of study and practice to create a harmonious environment to live in and with others. Once you've done that and practiced that for a little while, the next stage is asana. And asana means seat. And so back in the olden days, your asana was the place where you sat for meditation. And so the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali say that an asana is a steady, comfortable seat. So the idea is to sit down, get comfortable, maybe cross your legs. Maybe you're sitting on a chair like I am. Close your eyes. That's your asana. Of course, today we know asanas mean tree posture or downward dog, but 2,000 years ago, it was just sitting. After asana comes pranayama. Pranayama is breathing, the practice of breath control. And what yogis discovered long ago and what we can all experiment with and feel today is that our breathing has an incredibly powerful effect on our mind. So if our breathing is shallow and light, like if we're breathing like that, that's actually going to trigger a stress response. If we deepen our breathing and lengthen our breath, then that's going to trigger a relaxation response. And what we'll find is that the activity of the mind begins to settle down as we start to slow and deepen our breathing. So within yoga, the breath, pranayama, has always been the warm-up for meditation. Okay. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. The next stage is pratyahara, which means inward sensing. Think of a turtle that pulls its limbs inside of its shell. Okay? That's what a yogi does when we sit down to meditate and breathe. We close our eyes and, like the turtle, we draw all of our senses inward. So rather than being externally focused, we're internally focused. And I like to describe pratyahara in this way. We've all probably had the experience of being in our house and the air conditioner or the refrigerator is running in the background. And what you notice is that after a while, you don't even hear it. Your brain just filters that sound out. But when the refrigerator or the air conditioner turns off abruptly, suddenly you notice that it was on, number one, in the first place. And then you might notice a bird singing outside or someone talking as they're walking down the street. These were things that were there all along, but you didn't notice them while the sound was running. And it's like that with pratyahara. Our senses our sight, our seeing, our sense of sight, our sense of hearing, our sense of touch are so strong that most of the time they block out everything else more subtle that's going on. So when you close your eyes and you draw inward and the senses start to pull in, you may notice that there's other things, stuff going on inside you that you didn't notice before. Pratyahara. The next limb is Dharana, which is to hold. And at this point in the 8 limbs, what the yogi is doing is they are beginning to direct their focus to a single point, hold their attention to a single point. And oftentimes this might be the natural movement of the breath. And what you'll notice when you try to hold your mind on a single point is that the mind wanders. So you have to keep bringing the mind back and holding it on what you're focusing on. And oftentimes that's concentration. It's not quite meditation yet. We're actually willfully trying to concentrate, hold our focus on a single thing. If we continue to do that practice, day after day for a period of time, at some point we'll have the next limb occur, which is Dhyana, which is absorption or a flow. So in Dhyana, our attention is no longer having to be held to a single point. Our attention is then resting on a single point. So think about maybe you've looked at a campfire before, or a candle flame. And after a while, your mind becomes just transfixed. And you go into kind of a trance where you're not thinking about anything. And sometimes we lose track of time when we're in that state. And that's really Dhyana, that's absorption. The mind, you're actually meditating at that point because you're not trying to hold your mind, the mind is held. And then the final limb is called Samadhi. And I always tell a joke to illustrate Samadhi, which is, what did the Buddha say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. Ba-dum-ts. So, terrible joke, but Samadhi is a state of ineffable oneness, when the experience of being a distinct individual completely melts down and is melted away into an experience of sort of indescribable sense of oneness with point of focus. And this is not all, sometimes this is something that people actually experience. You don't have to just sit in a cave for 20 years to have that experience. Sometimes people have that experience through the arts, through a passionate activity that they pursue, where they temporarily experience a sense of total loss of differentiation of themselves and the rest of the world. In fact, Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th man to walk on the moon, had an experience of Samadhi while he was on his way back from the Apollo 8 mission, and he was looking out the window at planet Earth. And he was so overwhelmed with a sense of the total oneness of planet Earth that he was overcome with an incredible and indescribable bliss. And when he came back to planet Earth, he actually had to go to a university to ask them, what was this I experienced? And they pointed him to the Yoga Sutras. Astronauts can be yogis too. So that's the 8 limbs. You can practice each one of these things individually. You can pick up the Yamas and the Niyamas, you can work with your seat. But when they were put down in the Sutras of Patanjali, they were seen as a total practice, as a seamless whole. So I hope that is helpful.